Let me guess. You work hard every single day, but somehow by the end of the month there's barely anything left in your account. You're stressed about bills, worried about emergencies, and wondering if you'll ever actually get ahead financially. What if I told you there's a proven roadmap to financial freedom that anyone can follow, no matter how much you're making right now or how broke you feel today? Stay with me for the next 20 minutes, I promise you. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear roadmap to financial freedom that you can start implementing today, even if you're starting from zero. Point 1. Set clear financial goals. Imagine this. In just 5 years, you're completely free from money stress. No more living paycheck to paycheck. Look, the first and most important step to financial freedom is setting clear, specific goals for your money. And I'm not talking about some vague dream like, I want to be rich or I want to save more money. That's not a goal, that's just wishful thinking. If you don't know exactly where you're trying to go with your finances, you're going to waste years of your life spinning your wheels, making no real progress. Think about it like this. If you got in your car right now without a destination, you'd just drive around aimlessly, burning gas and getting nowhere. Your money works the same way. Without a clear target, you'll either get frustrated and give up, or you'll end up blowing your cash on stuff that doesn't matter. So what does a real financial goal look like? It's specific, it's measurable, and it has a deadline. For example, instead of saying, I want to buy a house someday, you say, I want to save $60,000 for a down payment on a house in the next 5 years. See the difference? The first one is just a dream floating in your head. The second one is a plan you can actually execute. When you have that level of clarity, something powerful happens. Every financial decision you make becomes easier because you can ask yourself one simple question. Does this move me closer to my goal or further away? That's the Machiavelli mindset right there. He understood that power comes from focus and strategy, not from hoping things work out. Let me give you a real-life example that'll make this crystal clear. There was this guy, Jake, working a regular 9-to-5 job making about $45,000 a year. Nothing fancy, just an average dude trying to get by. But Jake had a dream. He wanted to start his own business. The problem? He needed $50,000 saved up to make it happen. Most people would look at that number and think, that's impossible on my salary, and they'd give up before even starting. But not Jake. He sat down and broke it into a real plan. He said, I'm going to save $10,000 a year for the next 5 years. Then he broke that down even further. That's about $833 a month, or roughly $192 a week. Suddenly, this massive goal didn't seem so impossible anymore. Here's where it gets interesting. Once Jake had that clear target, his whole mindset changed. Every time he was about to spend money, he'd pause and ask himself, does this $50 dinner help me hit my goal or does it push me further away? Most of the time the answer was no, so he'd cook at home instead. When his friends wanted to go on an expensive vacation, he'd ask the same question. When he saw a new TV on sale, same question. He wasn't being cheap or miserable. He was being strategic. He knew exactly what he was working toward, and that clarity gave him the discipline to make tough choices. 5 years later, Jake hit his $50,000 target and launched his business. Today, he's making 6 figures and working for himself, all because he started with a clear, specific goal. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, but I don't even know what my goals should be. That's okay. Start by asking yourself a few simple questions. What does financial freedom actually look like for you? Does it mean owning your own home? Having enough saved up so you could survive 6 months without a paycheck? Being able to retire early? Starting a business? Traveling the world without worrying about money? Whatever it is for you, write it down. Get specific about the numbers. If you want to retire early, figure out exactly how much money you'd need to live comfortably without working. If you want to buy a house, research how much the down payment would be in your area. If you want to start a business, calculate your startup costs. The more specific you get, the more real it becomes. And here's another key insight. Your goals need to be time-bound. Saying I want to save $1 million someday is useless, because someday never comes. But saying I want to save $1 million by age 50 gives you a deadline, and deadlines create urgency. They force you to take action now instead of putting it off forever. When you have a specific timeline, you can work backwards and figure out exactly what you need to do each year, each month, each week to hit that target. That's how you turn a dream into a plan and a plan into reality. One more thing. Don't just set your goals and forget about them. Write them down somewhere you'll see them every day. Put them on your phone's home screen. Tape them to your bathroom mirror, whatever works for you. Review them regularly and track your progress. Celebrate the small wins along the way. When you hit your first $5,000 saved, acknowledge it. When you hit $10,000, celebrate that too. These small victories keep you motivated and remind you that you're actually making progress. Remember, Machiavelli taught that success comes from careful planning and consistent execution. You don't need to be lucky or privileged to achieve financial freedom. You need to be strategic and disciplined. And it all starts with setting clear goals that give your money a purpose and direction. Without that foundation, everything else you try to do will be way harder than it needs to be. So take the time right now, today, to figure out exactly what you want financially and when you want it by. That's your first step on the fair freedom. If you're getting value from this so far, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what your biggest financial goal is. All right, let's keep going. Step 2 is where things get real. Point 2, track every dollar you spend. If you can't control your money will always control you. Here's the brutal truth most people don't want to hear. You're probably bleeding money every single month and don't even realize it. I'm talking about those random charges that add up. The streaming services you forgot you subscribed to, the daily coffee runs, the just this once takeout orders that happen 3 times a week. These little expenses seem harmless in the moment, but they're quietly sabotaging your financial freedom. And the worst part, most people have no idea where their money actually goes each month. They just know that by the time payday rolls around again, their account is somehow empty. Sound familiar? This is exactly why tracking your spending is the second critical step on the roadmap to financial freedom. You can't fix a problem you can't see. If you don't know where every dollar is going, you can't make smart decisions about where to cut back or how to save more. It's like trying to lose weight without ever stepping on a scale or tracking what you eat. You're just guessing, and guessing doesn't work. You need real data. You need to see the truth about your spending habits, even if it's uncomfortable at first. That's the only way you'll gain control. Let me break down why this matters so much. When you track your spending, you become aware of patterns you never noticed before. Maybe you're spending $200 a month on food delivery apps. Maybe those small impulse purchases at Target add up to $300 every month. Maybe you're paying for gym memberships you haven't used in 6 months. Without tracking, these expenses are invisible. But once you write them down or log them in an app, they become real. And when they become real, you can do something about them. That's power. That's control. And that's exactly what Machiavelli would tell you to do. Understand your situation completely before making any strategic moves. So how do you actually track your spending? It's simpler than you think. Start by going through your bank statements and credit card statements from the last month. List out every single transaction. Don't skip anything, even the embarrassing ones. Put them into categories like groceries, rent, utilities, entertainment, eating out, subscriptions, shopping, transportation, and so on. Once you've categorized everything, add up each category. You're probably going to be shocked when you see the totals. That's a good thing. That shock is what motivates change. Now let me give you a real example. There was this girl, Sarah, working as a teacher, making about $40,000 a year. She was always broke, always stressed about money, even though she didn't have any major debt. She couldn't figure out where her money was going. So she decided to track every single dollar for 1 month. She used a simple app on her phone and logged every purchase, from her morning coffee to her Netflix subscription. At the end of the month, she sat down and looked at the numbers. She was spending $180 a month just on coffee. Not fancy meals, not shopping sprees, just coffee. Another $150 on food delivery because she was too tired to cook. Add in subscriptions she forgot about, random Amazon purchases and other small stuff, and she was wasting over $500 a month on things that didn't really improve her life. That realization hit her hard. She thought, if I cut out just the coffee and delivery apps, that's $330 a month. That's almost $4,000 a year. In 5 years, that's $20,000 I could have saved or invested. So she made some changes. She bought a decent coffee maker for $50 and started making coffee at home. She meal prepped on Sundays to avoid the temptation of ordering food. She canceled subscriptions she didn't use Within 6 months, she had built up a $2,000 emergency fund, something she'd never had in her entire adult life, all because she started tracking her spending and made conscious decisions instead of just letting money slip through her fingers. Here's another key insight. Once you start tracking, you need to create a budget based on what you learned. A budget isn't about restricting yourself or living like a monk. It's about telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. Look at your income. Subtract your fixed expenses like rent and utilities, then allocate specific amounts to each category based on your goals. If you're trying to save aggressively, maybe you budget $200 a month for eating out instead of $400. If you want to pay off debt faster, maybe you cut your entertainment budget in half temporarily. The point is, you're making intentional choices based on real data, not just hoping things work out. And here's the thing nobody talks about. You have to track consistently. Doing it for 1 month is great, but if you stop after that, you'll slowly drift back into old habits. Make it a routine. Some people check their spending every day, taking just 5 minutes to log their purchases. Others do it weekly. Find what works for you, but stick with it. Use whatever tool makes it easiest. There are tons of free apps like Mint or YNAB, or you can just use a simple spreadsheet. The method doesn't matter as much as the consistency. One last thing that'll blow your mind. When you track your spending, you naturally start spending less, even without trying. It's a psychological effect. When you know you have to write down every purchase, you think twice before buying that random stuff you don't need. You start asking yourself, do I really need this or do I just want it right now? That pause, that moment of awareness, is enough to stop a lot of impulse purchases. It's like having a personal financial advisor in your pocket, constantly reminding you of your goals. So start today. Pull up your bank statements, grab a notebook or open a spreadsheet, and write down every expense from the last month. The truth might sting, but it's the truth that sets you free. And once you see where your money is really going, you can start redirecting it toward the life you actually want, instead of wasting it on stuff that doesn't matter. Point no. 3. Get out of high-interest debt as fast as possible. That debt you're carrying around, it's not just killing your bank account, it's destroying your future. Let me tell you something that nobody wants to admit, but everybody needs to hear. If you're stuck in high-interest debt, especially credit card debt, you're basically running on a treadmill while someone keeps turning up the speed. You're working harder and harder just to stay in place, and you're never actually getting anywhere. High-interest debt is one of the biggest obstacles to financial freedom, and until you deal with it, everything else you try to do with your money is going to be way harder than it needs to be. You could have the best budget in the world, the clearest goals, the smartest investment strategy, but if you're paying 18%, 22%, or even 25% interest on credit card balances, you're basically trying to fill a bucket that has a giant hole in the bottom. Here's why high-interest debt is so dangerous. Let's say you have a $5,000 balance on a credit card with a 20% interest rate, and you're just making the minimum payment of about $150 a month. Sounds reasonable, right? You're making payments, you're being responsible. Wrong. At that rate, it's going to take you over 4 years to pay off that card, and you're going to pay over $2,300 in interest alone. That means you're paying $7,300 total for $5,000 worth of stuff you probably don't even remember buying. That's insane. That's literally throwing away thousands of dollars that could have gone toward your savings, your investments, or your future. And that's just one credit card. If you've got multiple cards maxed out, you're hemorrhaging money every single month. And most of it is going straight to the credit card companies, not to actually reducing what you owe. The reason this is such a trap is because of how compound interest works against you. Every month you carry a balance. You're not just paying interest on your original purchase, you're paying interest on the interest. It compounds, it grows, and it snowballs into this massive weight that keeps you stuck. And here's the worst part. While you're paying all this interest, you can't save money. You can't invest. You can't build wealth. You're just treading water, trying not to drown. That's not financial freedom. That's financial prison. Let me give you a real example. There was this guy, Marcus, making about $50,000 a year at his job. Pretty decent income for a single guy. But Marcus had racked up about $15,000 in credit card debt over a few years. Nothing crazy, just lifestyle creep. A few emergencies he put on the card, some impulse purchases here and there. He was making the minimum payments every month, about $400 total across 3 cards. He thought he was handling it, but when he actually sat down and did the math, he realized that at the rate he was going, it would take him over 10 years to pay off those cards, and he'd end up paying almost $10,000 in interest alone. That's when it hit him. He was literally working an extra year of his life just to pay interest to credit card companies. That realization made him angry, and that anger turned into motivation. Marcus decided to get aggressive. He looked at his 3 credit cards. One had a $3,000 balance at 22% interest, one had $6,000 at 18%, and one had $6,000 at 15%. Most people would start by paying off the smallest balance first to get that quick win, but Marcus used a different strategy called the debt avalanche method. He kept making minimum payments on all 3 cards, but he threw every extra dollar he could find at the card with the highest interest rate, that 22% killer. He picked up some overtime at work, sold some stuff he wasn't using, cut his entertainment budget in half, and redirected all that money to that one card. In 6 months, he wiped out that $3,000 balance. Then he took that $400 he was paying on that card and added it to the payment on his 18% card. The momentum started building. Within 2 years, all his cards were paid off, and he'd saved thousands in interest compared to just making minimum payments. Now here's the thing. Some people prefer a different approach called the debt snowball method, where you pay off the smallest balance first, regardless of interest rate. That works too, especially if you need those quick wins to stay motivated. The method doesn't matter as much as the commitment. What matters is that you stop making minimum payments and start attacking your debt aggressively. Every extra dollar you can throw at it is a dollar that's not going to get eaten up by interest. Think of it like this. If you put an extra $100 toward your credit card debt this month instead of going out to eat, that $100 doesn't just reduce your balance by $100. It also reduces all the future interest you would have paid on that $100. Over time, that adds up to serious money. And here's another critical point. While you're paying off debt, stop adding to it. This sounds obvious, but it's where most people fail. They start making progress on their debt, but then they keep using their credit cards for new purchases, and they end up right back where they started. It's like trying to bail water out of a sinking boat, while someone keeps drilling new holes in the bottom. If you're serious about getting out of debt, you need to stop using credit cards for everyday purchases. Switch to cash or a debit card. If you don't trust yourself, freeze your credit cards in a block of ice in your freezer. Literally, people do this, and it works because it forces you to wait and think before making impulse purchases. Some people also benefit from debt consolidation, where you take out a lower interest personal loan to pay off all your high interest credit cards. This can work if you qualify for a significantly lower rate and if you're disciplined enough not to run up your credit cards again once they're paid off. But be careful, consolidation isn't a magic fix. If you consolidate your debt but keep the same spending habits, you'll just end up with the personal loan plus new credit card debt, and you'll be even worse off than before. The bottom line is this: high interest debt is an emergency. It's not something you deal with eventually or when you have extra money. You make it a priority right now. Cut expenses, increase income, sell stuff, do whatever it takes to throw as much money as possible at that debt every single month. The faster you kill it, the sooner you can redirect all that money toward building wealth instead of making credit card companies rich. Machiavelli understood that you can't build power while you're weak and vulnerable. Debt makes you vulnerable. Eliminating it makes you strong. So treat it like the threat it is, attack it aggressively, and don't stop until it's gone. That's the only way you're going to break free and move forward on your path to financial freedom. Point 4. Pay yourself first. Make saving automatic. The people who actually build wealth don't save what's left over. They save first and spend what's left. Here's a question for you. When you get paid, who do you pay first? Your landlord? The electric company? Your credit card? What about yourself? If you're like most people, you probably pay everyone else first and then hope there's something left over to save at the end of the month. And guess what? There never is. There's always another expense, another bill, another emergency that eats up whatever you thought you'd save. This is why most Americans have less than $1,000 in savings, and why so many people are living paycheck to paycheck even when they're making decent money. The The problem isn't that they don't earn enough, it's that they're paying themselves last instead of first. The pay yourself first strategy flips this completely backwards, and it's one of the most powerful wealth-building habits you can develop. Instead of saving whatever's left over after you pay your bills and spend on everything else, you save first, before you do anything else with your money. The moment your paycheck hits your account, a chunk of it goes straight into savings or investments, automatically, before you even see it. Then you live on whatever's left. It sounds simple because it is simple, but simple doesn't mean easy, and it definitely doesn't mean it's not effective. Here's why this works so well. When you pay yourself first, you're making saving a priority instead of an afterthought. You're treating your future self like an actual bill that has to be paid, just like rent or utilities. And because it happens automatically, you can't forget to do it. You can't talk yourself out of it, and you can't spend that money on something else. It's already gone before you have a chance to mess it up. This removes willpower from the equation completely. You're not relying on discipline or motivation to save money every month. You're using a system that does it for you. Let me give you a real example of how powerful this is. There was this woman, Jennifer, working as a nurse making about $55,000 a year. She was terrible at saving money. Every month she'd tell herself, "This month I'm going to save $500. And every month she'd get to the end with nothing left. Something always came up. Car repairs, going out with friends, random Amazon purchases. She was stuck in this cycle where she knew she needed to save, but never actually did it. Then she learned about the pay yourself first method and decided to try something different. She set up an automatic transfer of $400 from her checking account to a separate savings account, scheduled for the day after her paycheck hit every 2 weeks. That's $800 a month going straight to savings before she even touched it. The first month was rough. She had to adjust her spending because that $800 wasn't available anymore. She cooked at home more, skipped a few shopping trips, said no to some social events that would have cost money. But something interesting happened. She survived. Her bills still got paid. She didn't starve. She just had to be a little more intentional about where the rest of her money went. And by the end of the first year, she had almost $10,000 saved up, more than she'd ever had in her entire life. That money became her emergency fund, and for the first time ever, she felt financially secure. When her car needed a $200 repair 6 months later, she didn't have to put it on a credit card. She just paid for it out of her savings and kept moving forward. The beauty of paying yourself first is that it forces you to live on less than you earn, which is literally the only way to build wealth. You can't save money if you're spending everything you make. And most people who try to save what's left over at the end of the month are really just lying to themselves because there's never anything left over. But when you automate your savings and pay yourself first, you're building wealth without even thinking about it. Your savings grow in the background while you focus on living your life. Now, how much should you pay yourself first? The standard recommendation is to save 10 to 20% of your income, but honestly, the right amount is whatever you can actually stick with. If you're starting from 0 and 20% sounds impossible, start with 5%. Start with 3%. Hell, start with $50 a paycheck if that's all you can manage right now. The specific amount matters way less than developing the habit. Once you get used to living on slightly less, you can increase the amount. Every time you get a raise, increase your automatic savings by a percentage of that raise. Every time you pay off a debt, redirect that payment into savings instead of lifestyle inflation. Over time, those small increases compound into serious money. And here's another pro tip. Set up multiple automatic transfers for different goals. Have one automatic transfer going to your emergency fund, another going to a retirement account like a 401k or IRA, maybe another going to a separate savings account for a specific goal like a house down payment or a vacation. When it's automated and split up like this, you're building wealth across multiple areas of your life without having to manually manage any of it. Most banks and employers make this incredibly easy to set up. You can usually do it online in about 5 minutes. There's literally no excuse not to do this. The psychological benefit of paying yourself first is huge too. When you see your savings growing automatically every month, it's motivating. You start to feel like you're actually making progress instead of just treading water. You develop confidence in your ability to manage money. And when an unexpected expense comes up, You don't panic because you know you've got money set aside to handle it. That peace of mind is worth way more than whatever you might have spent that money on if you hadn't saved it. First, here's the Machiavelli connection. He understood that power comes from preparation and strategic positioning, not from reacting to whatever's happening around you. When you pay yourself first, you're positioning yourself for financial power. You're preparing for the future instead of just reacting to the present. You're taking control instead of letting life control you. Most people are financially weak because they're reactive. They spend what they have and hope it works out. But when you pay yourself first, you're being strategic. You're building resources that give you options, flexibility, and security. That's real financial power, and it all starts with one simple decision: to pay yourself before you pay anyone else. So here's what you do today. Log into your bank account, find the automatic transfer option, and set up a recurring transfer from your checking to your savings. Pick an amount that feels challenging but doable. Schedule it for the day after you get paid. Then forget about it and let it run. Check back in 6 months and look at how much you've saved without even trying. That number is going to shock you, and it's going to prove that you don't need to make more money to start building wealth. You just need to pay yourself first and let the system do the work for you. Point 5. Build multiple income streams and invest smart. Relying on one job for all your income isn't financial freedom, it's financial risk. Here's the hard truth that most people don't want to face. If all your income comes from one source, you're one layoff, one health crisis, or one company bankruptcy away from complete financial disaster. You could be making 6 figures at your job, living comfortably, paying your bills, saving a little bit, and thinking you're doing fine. But the moment that job disappears, everything falls apart. Your entire financial life is built on a single foundation, and if that foundation cracks, you're done. That's not security. That's vulnerability disguised as stability. This is why building multiple income streams is absolutely critical to achieving real financial freedom. When you have money coming in from different sources, your main job, a side hustle, investments, rental income, digital products, whatever, you're not dependent on any single one of them. If one stream dries up, you've still got others keeping you afloat. You've diversified your risk, and you've given yourself options. And options are power. Machiavelli understood this principle perfectly. Never put yourself in a position where one bad move or one piece of bad luck can destroy you. Always have backup plans. Always have alternative sources of power. Always be thinking strategically about your position. Let me give you a real example of how this works. There was this guy, David, working as a software engineer making $75,000 a year. Good salary, stable job, comfortable life. But David realized that his entire financial future was tied to one company. If they decided to downsize or outsource his position, he'd be scrambling. So he started building additional income streams. First, he started freelancing on the side, doing small web development projects for local businesses. That brought in an extra $500 to $1,000 a month. Then he started investing in dividend-paying stocks with the extra money he was making from freelancing. Those dividends started generating about $200 a month in passive income. He also created an online course teaching people how to code, which took him a few months to build, but then started generating $300 to $500 a month in sales with minimal ongoing effort. Within 2 years, David had 4 income streams: his main job, freelance work, dividend income, and course sales. His total income went from $75,000 a year to over $90,000, but more importantly, he wasn't dependent on his job anymore. When his company announced layoffs a year later, David wasn't panicking like his co-workers. He actually negotiated a severance package and then went full-time with his freelancing and course business, eventually making more than he ever did at his corporate job. That's the power of multiple income streams. They give you freedom, flexibility, and security that a single paycheck can never provide. Now, you might be thinking, I don't have time for a side hustle. I'm already working full-time. I get it. But here's the thing. You don't need to build all your income streams at once. Start with one. Maybe you pick up a few hours of freelance work in your field on weekends. Maybe you start driving for Uber a couple nights a week. Maybe you sell stuff you don't need on eBay or Facebook Marketplace. The specific side hustle doesn't matter as much as just getting started and proving to yourself that you can earn money outside of your main job. Once you've got that first additional stream going, you can work on building another one and another one. It compounds over time. And here's where smart investing comes in. Once you're earning extra money from multiple sources, you need to put that money to work for you instead of just spending it. This is where most people mess up. They start making more money and they immediately inflate their lifestyle to match. They get a raise or start a side hustle, and suddenly they're eating out more, buying nicer stuff, upgrading their car. That's called lifestyle inflation, and it's a trap that keeps you stuck on the income treadmill forever. Instead, take that extra income and invest it. If you're a beginner and don't know where to start, keep it simple. So open a brokerage account and start putting money into low-cost index funds that track the S&P 500. You don't need to be a stock market genius or pick individual stocks. Index funds give you instant diversification across hundreds of companies, and historically, they've returned about 10% annually over the long term. If you invest $500 a month into index funds and get a 10% average return, in 20 years you'll have over $380,000. In 30 years, over $1 million. That's the power of compound interest working for you. Another option is dividend-paying stocks or funds. These are investments that pay you cash regularly just for owning them. Companies like Coca-Cola, Johnson & Johnson, and Procter & Gamble have been paying dividends for decades. You buy shares and every quarter they send you money. It might not seem like much at first, maybe $50 or $100 a quarter, but as you keep investing and those dividends get reinvested to buy more shares, it snowballs. Eventually, you could be making hundreds or even thousands of dollars a month in passive dividend income. Real estate is another powerful income stream if you can swing it. You don't necessarily need to buy a whole rental property. You can start with real estate crowdfunding platforms like Fundrise or Realty Mogul, where you can invest in real estate projects with as little as $500 or $1,000. Or if you do buy property, you can rent out a room in your house on Airbnb or HouseHack by living in one unit of a duplex and renting out the other. Real estate can provide both monthly cash flow from rent and long-term appreciation in property value. You can also create digital products that generate income while you sleep. Write an ebook and sell it on Amazon. Create a course and sell it on Udemy or Teachable. Build a YouTube channel or blog and monetize it with ads and affiliate marketing. The upfront work is significant, but once it's created, these products can keep generating income for years with minimal ongoing effort. That's true passive income. Here's the key insight. Financial freedom isn't about making a ton of money from one source. It's about building a diversified portfolio of income streams that work together to support your life. When you have your main job covering your basic expenses, a side hustle building your savings, investments generating passive income, and maybe a digital product or rental property adding extra cash flow, you're in a completely different financial position than someone relying on a single paycheck. You've got options, you've got security, and you've got the freedom to make decisions based on what you want, not what you need to survive. Start today. Pick one additional income stream to develop. Maybe it's a side hustle, maybe it's opening an investment account and putting $50 a month into an index fund, maybe it's creating a digital product. Just pick one and start. Then once that's running, add another. Keep building, keep diversifying, keep investing. Over time, these streams will grow and compound, and before you know it, you'll have built a financial foundation that can support you no matter what happens with any single source of income. That's the final step on the fastest roadmap to financial freedom, and it's the one that separates people who just survive from people who actually thrive. Look, I know the financial struggle is real. I've been there. Stressed, overwhelmed, wondering if things will ever get better. But here's the truth. You don't have to figure this out alone. I'm committed to being here with you every single day, breaking down exactly what you need to know to change your financial life. Just give me 20 minutes a day. That's all I'm asking. Hit that subscribe button right now, because tomorrow I'm bringing you another insight that's going to move you one step closer to the freedom you deserve. We're building your future together. I believe in you, and I'll see you in the next video.